The opening scene features a 16-year-old Max, who is currently at a psychiatrist's office. The boy has a strange condition. The people who see his face die on the spot. As a result, he has covered his whole face with a white bandage. He explains the matter to the psychiatrist, saying that his condition originated from his birth. At the time of his delivery, the doctors and nurses were awestruck by his facial appearance, and moments later, they all died. However, this is not a painful death, but a happy and pleasurable death. His face is probably so beautiful that it causes a surge in hormones that immediately ends a person's life. Due to this, Max's parents had to move to a more secluded town. He is also homeschooled to protect himself and the other kids. However, his rare ability makes him feel very lonely, because the only people who aren't affected by this are his parents, who probably ironically think he looks like a foot. The psychiatrist does not believe in his story, so he asks the boy to remove his sunglasses and bandage, and as soon as Max does so, he passes away. Not long after, the police show up, but they can't just arrest the boy for revealing his face. As a result, he is as usual, released without any trouble. Back at home, Max is visited by his only friend, Dan. While having their lunch together, Max's parents ask Dan to sign up for some dating apps for Max, so that he can start going out rather than staying inside the house every day. Dating apps won't help with that. Dating apps are crap. Later on, Max asks his friend to hit him with a brick and disfigure his face, which might disable his condition. However, Dan claims that it won't be effective, reminding him of how they tried that earlier with a hammer. When Max insists, his friend punches him hard on his face, causing his nose to bleed. Sensing Max's sadness, Dan sets up a date for him on Valentine's Day. They meet a girl named Erica at a restaurant, but she is clearly made uncomfortable by Max's appearance. In order to break the ice, he gives her a small gift, a self-sewn handkerchief with her name on it. He also tries to compliment her and flirt with her, but the girl seems uninterested. A short while later, they are interrupted by Erica's ex-boyfriend Greg, who appears to be a tough, intimidating, and aggressive man. Alpha Greg. He begins to make fun of Max's appearance, and even assaults him physically with no apparent reason. Despite being humiliated in front of everyone, Max tries to meet Erica some other day, but she refuses and walks away. Because of all this, Max suffers a mental breakdown. He walks up to a bridge with the intention of throwing himself off, but before he can take such a drastic step, he is approached by a girl named Alex. She surprisingly suggests that he should go to a higher bridge if he really wants to die. Max angrily shouts at her for offering such advice to someone in such a dire state. In response, Alex calmly says that she knew he wouldn't jump. As they converse, Max opens up about his problems and expresses his wish to live a normal life. Upon sensing his depression, Alex takes him to a retirement home where she volunteers. There, she introduces him to her elderly friends, Esther, who battles Alzheimer's disease, and Rosemary, who has a terminal illness. They spend the entire day conversing with them, which cheers Max up, because he realizes that Esther's life is more crap than his. Before they part ways, he asks Alex if they can meet again. Sadly, she turns him down and leaves. The next day, Max confides in Dan about Alex and expresses his longing to see her again. Hearing this, Dan suggests that he go to the same spot where they first met and wait for her there. Heeding his friend's advice, Max sets out and waits for her in a bus stop near the bridge. Fortunately, he sees her again and convinces her to spend more time with him. See, if a girl turns you down, just stalk her. Following this, the duo heads to a store where they buy a lot of candy in order to fulfill one of Max's dreams of swimming in them. They then fill his bathtub with candies and sit in it. From this point onwards, the two start bonding, because if they can do something that cringe together, they can do anything. Max then shares his rare condition with her, but she doesn't seem to be affected, unlike others. In turn, Alex also reveals about her rare cardiovascular disease, in which her heart enlarges whenever she shows or feels any emotions. She also shows him how she is wearing a device that monitors her heart every time. But since her condition is currently stable, she says that there's nothing to worry about, for Max is boring and makes her feel nothing. As days pass, they start growing closer and really seem to enjoy each other's company. One day, they go to a cinema hall where they enjoy a movie while also getting turboed. Later that night, Alex walks Max home, and he invites her inside. While in his room, he asks her about the light bulb on her jacket. Alex explains it's a dangerous indicator that lights up when her condition worsens. Amidst their conversation, Alex removes his sunglasses and looks into his eyes. Max is scared that she'll die, but surprisingly, nothing happens. Probably one has to see his full face to end up in such a fate. Just then, Max's parents return home and are elated to see their son finally having a girl over.
Attaboy, son, give her a spank.
Hot Dear, please. They also introduce an exchange student named Yushin, who will be staying with them until she finishes her studies. They tell Max to befriend her, but he doesn't appear interested in doing so. The following day, Max, Alex, Dan, and his girlfriend plan a forest camping trip. Max's mother asks them to take Yushin as well. The boy is hesitant about it, but upon continuous insisting, he agrees. Later, as they walk in the woods, Alex gets a minor injury. She scratches herself with a branch. Seeing this, Max tears a piece of his face bandage and wraps it around her wound. His action makes her feel loved, which actually isn't good for her heart. As night falls, they all set up a bonfire and camp. During this time, Alex expresses her wish to see Max's face, so he takes her under the blanket, covers her eyes with the bandage, and allows her to feel his face. The moment turns romantic, even though it's weird as shit, and they end up sharing a kiss. In the next scene, Max and Alex visit the retirement home, only to learn that Rosemary is in a critical phase of her life. Seeing the old lady suffering a lot, Alex is unable to hold in her tears, which is again bad for her health. As a result, she walks out of the room, followed by Max. Alex then reveals that Rosemary is suffering a lot, and the nursing home is trying their best to save her by putting her on several medical devices which torture her even more. Due to this, she requests him to take off his face bandage and show his face to Rosemary. In this way, the old woman will not have to suffer so much and can die peacefully. Please, Max, mercy kill this old lady for me with your face. Max is initially hesitant, but after thinking it through, he agrees. Trauma or no trauma, he then goes to the wardroom and reveals his face, letting her die happily. Time passes, and the relationship between Max and Alex gets deeper and deeper. However, things eventually begin to change, as Alex stops replying to his texts and phone calls. After a few days, a concerned Max decides to go to her place. Once there, he learns that the doctor has doubled her medication dose because her heart is getting larger. Hearing this, Max blames himself because they were meeting a lot. He asks if he can do anything for her, to which she asks him to take her to a party. Obliging, Max takes her to a party where Dan is also present with his new girlfriend. At first, the atmosphere is lively as they dance and savor the moment. Soon after, the song changes to a romantic one, prompting them to start a romantic dance. This causes Alex's heart to beat very fast, which makes her feel uneasy. When she starts bleeding from her nose, she excuses herself and rushes to the bathroom. Now that Max is alone, Dan and his girlfriend join him for company. After a while, they are approached by Erica's ex-boyfriend, Alpha Greg, and his boys. Once more, the aggressive guy bullies Max, and even goes as far as removing his face mask. Dan's girlfriend happens to see his face, which leads to her tragic demise. Shortly after, the police arrive at the scene and arrest Max. While walking towards the police car, Max notices Alex being transported to the ambulance, as her health seems to have deteriorated badly. Damn, who cares about Dan's girlfriend though? After spending a day in prison, Max is somehow bailed out, and he rushes to the hospital to see his lover. There, he learns that Alex was always going to die. The medications she took were only to suppress her emotions. But since she started to fall for him, she was willingly risking her life to experience emotions, due to which she stopped taking the medicine. Now that she is already on her final stage, she makes her last wish to see his face and die in peace. Max, who can't let her go, gets enraged by this and claims that she won't understand how it feels to see someone die before him. He refuses to fulfill her request and storms out. Max returns home and tries to disfigure his face with a brick, just the usual. However, his parents stop him and somehow manage to calm him down with a comforting hug. At the same time, Yushin's cat enters the room and sees his face. This causes it to die as well. From this day onwards, Max, who is upset by Alex's request, stops seeing her and does not even answer her calls or texts. One day, Max meets with Dan and confides in him about everything that has been happening in his life. He still doesn't care about killing his girlfriend, though. He reveals about Alex's critical condition and her request. Hearing this, Dan doesn't understand why he is ignoring her, despite knowing that she is sick. He asks him to stay with her, pointing out that he might even lose the chance to bid her goodbye. His words seem to have the right effect on Max, and he eventually decides to meet her. The next day, Max goes to the hospital and starts decorating Alex's wardroom with all of his handcrafted creations. He also apologizes for staying away from her, confessing that he wasn't ready to face the possibility of losing her. Now that he understands her pain, he finally agrees to fulfill her earlier request. He then removes his face bandage and lies down beside her. Before looking at him, she leans forward and shares a romantic kiss. She then opens her eyes and looks at his face, but it doesn't actually kill her. However, it brings her joy that has a negative impact on her heart, causing her condition to worsen. Max immediately summons the doctors, who manage to stabilize her for now. He then stays by her side throughout the night until she ultimately succumbs to her illness. In the next scene, we see the devastated Max attending Alex's funeral. Later on, he goes to the same bridge where he first met her. He has an envelope in his hand with Alex's name written on it. He then puts her favorite chocolate in it and throws it into the river. That was a perfectly good chocolate. A few days later, Max's murder charges are dropped by the court, as forensic evidence proves that Dan's girlfriend died a natural death. Gradually recovering, Max's life starts to take a positive turn, and the terrible feelings slowly fade away. In order to honor Alex, he visits the retirement home from time to time and spends time with Esther. Eventually, Max finds the right way to use his unique ability. He grants euthanasia to those who request it, so they can look at his face and die happily and peacefully. This is so dark. The movie ends as Max narrates that the most important thing he learned from Alex is that his face isn't lethal to those who love him unconditionally. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on the notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.